My name is Evelyn Carter, and this is the house I have lived in for over 50 years. It's a modest place, creaking in all the usual ways an old house does, but it has always felt like a home. Warm and filled with the echoes of family, laughter, and the quiet comfort of routine. Or at least it did. These days, the house feels smaller somehow, the walls closing in as if they're straining to contain the tension that hums in every room. The rooms are still filled with the same well-worn furniture, the same family heirlooms carefully arranged on the shelves. My mother's silver teapot sits in the dining room cabinet, polished to a gentle gleam. The quilt I made with my sister's help decades ago still covers the back of the couch, but even with all these memories around me, the air feels different. Colder, as if the warmth of the past has been replaced by something sharper and harder to name. Vanessa moved in 6 months ago, and in that time, the house has become less mine with every passing day. She came with Brian, of course, my son, my only child. He told me it was just until they found their own place. "It's temporary, Mom," he said, a reassuring hand on my shoulder that didn't quite reach his eyes, but I knew from the start that temporary is a word that can stretch to fit any shape it needs to. Vanessa's beautiful, I'll give her that. She has the kind of polished poise I never learned. Hair always smooth and perfect, lips painted a deep red that never smudges. She moves through my kitchen like she's always belonged there, her designer laptop perched on the counter while she orders groceries and schedules her endless appointments. It's a cold sort of beauty, like the glint of polished silver that never quite warms to the touch. When I try to speak to her, she smiles with her lips, but not her eyes. "Of course, Evelyn," she says in that sweet, clipped voice of hers. She says my name like it's something fragile, like she's afraid she might break it if she's not careful. It makes me feel like a guest in my own home. Brian, and he tries, I think. He always was a quiet boy, soft-spoken and gentle, the kind of son who never raised his voice or caused a scene. But he's grown into a man who prefers to keep the peace, even when that peace means letting Vanessa take over everything. He sits at the dinner table, his hands wrapped around a cup of coffee, eyes darting between us as if he's waiting for the next small crack to widen into a chasm. I can't blame him for wanting to avoid conflict. That's what I taught him, after all. My mother's voice echoes in my head whenever I think of standing up to Vanessa. "Don't make a fuss, Evelyn. Keep your head down and your mouth shut." My mother was a woman who believed silence was the strongest armor a woman could wear. I wore that armor for most of my life, and now it's rusted and heavy, but it's the only thing I know. Vanessa has taken over the household routines with a quiet, relentless efficiency. She calls it helping, but it feels more like replacing. The way she organizes the pantry, moving my mason jars to the top shelves where I can't reach them. The way she tells me, in that patient, patronizing voice, that I shouldn't worry about the bills. She's got it all handled. She even turned the guest bedroom into her office, her laptop always glowing cold and bright as she taps away at the keys. Sometimes I watch her from the doorway, the blue light of the screen reflecting off her face, making her look like something out of a different world. She types quickly, her fingers flying over the keys with a precision that makes my own hands feel clumsy and slow. She's always connected, calls, emails, texts, while I stand there clutching my coffee cup like it's the only thing anchoring me to the present. The first time she blocked my number, I didn't even realize it. I tried to call her from my room one night just to ask if she needed help with dinner. The call went straight to voicemail, and when I mentioned it the next morning, she laughed lightly, saying it must have been a mistake. But the look in her eyes told me it wasn't. It was a small thing, but it felt like a lock clicking shut. I find myself retreating more and more into the corners of the house that still feel like mine. The little sunroom where I keep my mother's rocking chair, the kitchen window that looks out over the garden I planted the year Brian was born. In those spaces, I can almost forget that Vanessa's laughter echoes through the halls, or that Brian's eyes have grown distant, shadowed by something he can't quite name. In the evenings, when Vanessa and Brian sit on the couch watching TV, I sit in my bedroom with the door cracked open, listening to the low murmur of their voices. I hear the way she talks to him, gentle, persuasive, always just on the edge of patronizing. "We're doing this for her," she says. She doesn't need to worry herself about anything anymore. She says it like a kindness, but I can hear the steel in her voice. I wonder if Brian hears it too. The nights are the hardest. When the house is quiet and the only light is the moonlight streaming through the curtains, I lie in bed and think about all the ways this house used to feel safe. The laughter of Brian as a child, the warmth of my husband's arm around my waist in the kitchen, the way I used to feel like I belonged here, like this house was a part of me. Now, it feels like I'm haunting my own life. Vanessa's presence is a quiet storm, rearranging everything in her path while pretending to leave it untouched. She says all the right words. Of course, Evelyn, we're just here to help. You don't need to worry. But every syllable feels like a nail in the coffin of the life I thought I had. Sometimes I catch her watching me. Her expression is always careful, always composed, but there's something else there too. Something calculating, a flicker of satisfaction when I struggle to find the right word, or when my hands shake as I pour my tea. She sees my weakness and she knows how to use it. Brian doesn't see it, or maybe he doesn't want to. He tells me I'm imagining things, that Vanessa is just trying to help. And maybe I would believe him, if not for the way her eyes go cold when she thinks I'm not looking. I've spent a lifetime learning how to endure. My mother taught me that a woman's worth is measured by how quietly she can bear the weight of everyone else's needs. But as I sit in the quiet of this house, surrounded by the memories of a life I built and the shadows of the one that's slipping away, I feel something I haven't felt in years, a small, bright spark of defiance. If Vanessa thinks she can take everything from me, my home, my voice, my place in this family, she's in for a surprise. Because I may be old and I may be quiet, but I am still here, and I will not be erased. The days begin to blur together, each one folding into the next, like pages in a book I've read too many times. Vanessa's presence has become as steady and unyielding as the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway. She's always there, moving through my kitchen, rearranging my pantry, her bright, polite smile never faltering even as she edges me out of my own life. She says things like, "You're lucky to have us here, Evelyn." Her voice warm and honeyed, but the words feel like a lock around my throat. Lucky. As if I should be grateful that my own home has become a stage for her endless performances. She says it often. "You're lucky. We're doing this for you. You don't need to worry about a thing." But each time, her eyes flick over me like she's checking to see if I'll push back, if I'll find my voice and tell her that I don't feel lucky at all. I try sometimes. I try to speak up, to remind her that this is my house, my kitchen, my life. But the words come out small and uncertain, like whispers that can't quite fill the room. "I'd like to handle dinner tonight," I say one afternoon, my voice quiet but hopeful. She smiles, her lips curving just enough to show her teeth. "Of course, Evelyn," she says smoothly, but her hands are already moving, chopping onions, stirring sauce, turning my kitchen into her domain before I can blink. She doesn't say no, not directly. She just doesn't give me space to say yes. At family dinners, her phone is always in her hand, the screen casting a cold blue light across her face. Even as she talks to Brian, her fingers never stop scrolling, checking emails, reading messages, always somewhere else, even when she's sitting right in front of us. The glow of the screen has become another presence at the table, turning the warmth of family meals into something sterile and silent. Brian doesn't seem to notice. Or maybe he does, but he doesn't know what to say. He sits across from me, his shoulders hunched, his eyes flicking between Vanessa and me like he's waiting for someone to break the silence. He chews his food slowly, carefully, as if he's afraid that even the sound of his fork against the plate might be too loud. I want to tell him how it feels. To watch your own son choose quiet over honesty, to feel like you're losing him a little more every day. But when I open my mouth, the words catch in my throat, tangled up in all the years of careful smiles and polite silences I taught him to use. "Everything's fine, Mom," he says when I ask if he's happy, his voice too quick, too rehearsed. "Vanessa's just trying to help." I nod and smile like I believe him, even though I feel like a ghost at my own dinner table. The sound of the fork scraping against the plate, the low hum of the refrigerator. These are the only things that feel real anymore. When the neighbors stop by, Ruth, with her quick eyes and slow gossip, she always asks the same question. "How's it going with Vanessa living there?" I see the curiosity in her eyes, the way she glances over my shoulder into the darkened hallway. But when I say, "Oh, she's helpful," Ruth just nods, her lips pressed into a thin line. She doesn't push. Maybe she sees it too, or maybe she's learned, like I have, that some things are easier left unsaid. Vanessa's sweetness is a performance, one she plays with the kind of precision that leaves no room for doubt. When Brian is around, she's all gentle laughter and warm touches, her hand resting on his arm as she says, "Your mother is so wonderful, isn't she? We're so lucky to be here." But when it's just the two of us, her voice turns sharp, her smile tight and thin. "You really should let us handle things, Evelyn," she says one morning as she reorganizes the kitchen cabinets again. "It's too much for you now. You need to rest." "I'm not an invalid," I say, the words trembling with more defiance than I've felt in years. She laughs softly, her eyes flicking up from her phone for just a moment. "Of course not," she says. "But you're not as young as you used to be. Let me help." The shame of it burns in my chest. How easily I'm dismissed. How quickly my place here has been overwritten. I tell myself it's just temporary, just a phase. But I feel the truth in every small kindness that comes with a sharp edge. At night, I lie in bed and think about the way she says my name, like a kindness, like a threat. Evelyn. My mother's voice echoes in my head, telling me to endure, to be grateful, to keep the peace, no matter how much it costs me. "A good woman knows her place," she used to say. "Don't make trouble where there doesn't need to be any." I wonder if that's what Vanessa is counting on, that I'll keep quiet, keep smiling, keep letting her take what she wants, but there's a difference between being quiet and being blind. And I'm not blind. One afternoon, I decide to call Vanessa, just to ask if she wants me to pick up something from the store. It's a small thing, but I want to feel like I'm still part of this house, this family. I dial her number, the phone pressed to my ear, the quiet beep of each ring echoing in my chest. Voicemail. Straight to voicemail. I try again, the same result. My heart hammers in my chest, the quiet, certain finality of it sinking in like a stone. She blocked my number. The realization makes my breath catch, my hands shaking as I lower the phone. It wasn't an accident. It was deliberate. One more way to cut me out, to remind me that I'm no longer the center of this family. My number, my voice, blocked with a swipe of her finger. And she didn't even bother to tell me. When I confront her later that day, my voice is calm, too calm. "I tried to call you," I say, my words careful and deliberate. "Oh?" She doesn't look up from her phone, her fingers still tapping out some message I'll never see. "Must be a mistake, these things happen." "It went straight to voicemail," I say again, pressing the words into the quiet between us. She lifts her eyes to mine then, her smile as bright and cold as polished silver. "I'll look into it," she says, her voice soft and sweet, but we both know she won't. That night I sit in my room, the door closed, the silence heavy around me. My hands rest on the old quilt draped over my knees, the threads worn and soft from years of use. I think about how easy it was for her to block my voice, to shut me out without a second thought. I think about how many times I've let myself be small, let myself be silenced because it was easier than making waves. But as I sit there, in the quiet of my own house, I feel something shift inside me. A small, stubborn ember of anger and determination, something I haven't felt in a long, long time. She thinks she's winning. She thinks she can erase me as easily as she blocked my number. She doesn't know me as well as she thinks she does. When the house is quiet and the night stretches long and cold, I find myself drifting back to the places where all of this began. Memory is a strange thing, soft and sharp at the same time, each piece as fragile as a pressed flower in an old book. I have shelves full of those old books, and sometimes I wonder if the memories I've kept are as faded and brittle as the pages I've pressed them between. My mother was a woman who believed that silence was the only kind of strength a woman could afford. She was always neat and composed, her hair pinned back in a tight knot, her lips pressed into a thin, unsmiling line. She moved through our house like a shadow, present in every room, but never quite part of them. "Don't make trouble, Evelyn," she'd say when I was young and restless. "Good girls are seen, not heard." My father was a man who worked hard and spoke little. He'd come home each night, shoulders hunched with the weight of the world, and sink into his worn armchair with a sigh. The newspaper was his shield, his silence a wall that none of us could climb. I'd stand in the doorway, hoping for some sign that he saw me, that I was more than a piece of furniture in his world. But he'd only nod once in a while, his eyes already somewhere else. I learned early on that love was something you earned by staying quiet, by making sure the house was clean and the table was set, by never asking for more than what was already given. My mother taught me that a woman's worth was measured in the quiet ways she held everything together, even when it was breaking her apart. I see her in the old photographs I keep in the bottom drawer of my nightstand. Faded snapshots of a family that looks happier than it ever was. My mother's stiff smile, my father's distant eyes, and me, a little girl with bright eyes and a tight braid, standing between them like a bridge that was never strong enough to span the distance. When I was young, I promised myself I would find something different, someone different, but the world has a way of teaching you that some lessons run too deep to be unlearned. I met David when I was 22. He was handsome in a quiet, unassuming way. Broad shoulders, gentle smile, a voice that never rose above a calm, steady tone. He was polite, attentive, and patient, and in the beginning that felt like enough. Maybe it was enough, until I realized that patient and present are not the same thing. Our courtship was a polite dance of small talk and careful gestures. He'd take me to the diner on Main Street, always ordering the same black coffee, always listening more than he spoke. I thought his quiet was a sign of depth, that there was something strong and steady beneath the surface. I thought he would be the warmth I had been missing all my life. But marriage is a different kind of silence. In the first years, I kept myself busy, cooking meals he never complimented, cleaning rooms he never noticed. I tried to fill the quiet with laughter and small kindnesses, but it never seemed to reach him. He was always polite, always calm, but his eyes never lingered on me for long. "Are you happy?" I asked him once, my voice small in the dark of our bedroom. It was late, the world outside wrapped in a blanket of summer heat, and I thought maybe, just maybe, the night would soften the distance between us. He turned to me, his eyes already half closed. "Of course, Evelyn," he said, his voice a tired sigh. "Don't worry yourself." I learned then that worry was my burden to carry alone. In the old photo albums, thick leather-bound volumes that sit on the shelf by the fireplace, I see the woman I used to be, smiling in family portraits, holding Brian when he was a baby, my eyes bright with a hope that feels almost foreign now. There's a photo of me on our wedding day, the lace of my dress catching the light like a promise. My smile is wide, but if you look closely, you can see it doesn't quite reach my eyes. "Keep your head down, Evelyn." My mother's voice echoes in my mind whenever I look at those photographs. "Be grateful for what you have." I tried to be grateful. I tried to be enough, but the years pass quietly when you're living in someone else's silence. Brian was born in the middle of winter, a bright, wriggling bundle of life that made the house feel warmer than it had in years. I poured everything I had into him, my hopes, my fears, the small, fierce love I'd never known how to give my own parents. I thought I could break the pattern, that I could raise a child who knew he was seen and heard and loved. But old habits run deep. I see that now. I see it in the way Brian avoids conflict, the way he swallows his own voice to keep the peace, just like I did. I see it in the way he lets Vanessa speak for him, the way he sits at the dinner table with his eyes cast down, a man who learned from his mother that silence is the safest way to survive. The weight of that realization settles heavy on my chest. I thought I was giving him a better life. I thought I was showing him how to be kind and gentle. But what I was really teaching him was how to be small, how to let someone else's voice drown out your own. I remember the last argument I had with David before he died. It wasn't really an argument, not in the way most people think of it. It was just another quiet night in the kitchen, the sound of the clock ticking on the wall, the smell of overcooked vegetables on the stove. "I wish you'd talk to me," I said, my voice shaking. He looked at me with those tired eyes, his fork paused halfway to his mouth. "I'm tired, Evelyn," he said simply. "Can't we just have a quiet dinner?" I nodded, and that was that. Another night of silence, another lesson learned. Now, in the quiet of my house, I see all the pieces that led me here. The way my mother's voice became mine, the way my father's distance became David's, and the way my silence became Brian's. Generational trauma, they call it. Cycles of hurt and habit passed down like family recipes, each one a little more bitter than the last. I wish I could go back and tell that younger version of myself that love doesn't have to be quiet. That strength isn't measured by how much you can endure without complaint. But the past is a place you can't rewrite, no matter how many times you try. What I can do now is see it, really see it, and maybe, just maybe, find a way to let my voice be heard before it's too late. The day I decided to stop being silent was a gray, drizzling morning, the kind that clings to the house like a heavy shroud. I'd woken up early, the ache in my bones a familiar companion, and found myself standing in the kitchen, staring at the old recipe book that had belonged to my mother. The pages were yellowed and brittle, flecked with spots of flour and grease stains from years of Sunday dinners and quiet breakfasts. It smelled like comfort and memory, like the woman I once was before all of this. I don't know what made me reach for it. Maybe I needed to remind myself that I'd once known how to create warmth and belonging, that I'd once been someone who mattered. My hands shook as I flipped through the pages, my fingers brushing over recipes in my mother's careful script: chicken pot pie, lemon pound cake, beef stew. Each word was a small thread to the past, a connection to the women who came before me. But it wasn't the recipes I was looking for. I didn't even know I was looking for anything at all until the slip of paper fell from between the pages. A phone number, written in neat black ink. Michael Whitmore, family lawyer. I stared at it for a long moment, the letters swimming in front of my eyes. I'd tucked it away years ago after David died, when I thought maybe I'd need it one day. I hadn't thought about it in so long, but now it felt like a lifeline. The idea of calling him made my stomach twist with fear. I'd never been one for confrontation. My mother's voice still echoing in my mind, telling me to keep my head down, to endure. But there was something else in me that morning, too, something sharp and bright that cut through the fog of doubt. If I don't stand up now, I never will. I carried the number with me to the small study off the living room, the room that had once been David's domain. His bookshelves, his papers, the faint smell of old leather and cedar that never quite faded. The morning light was soft and gray, the rain tapping gently at the window. I sat down at the heavy oak desk, the phone trembling in my hand. My heart was a drum in my chest, each beat a question. Was I ready for this? Could I really fight back after all these years of letting others speak for me? My fingers hovered over the buttons, the weight of silence pressing down like a second skin. When I finally dialed, my hands were shaking so badly, I almost dropped the phone. The line rang once, twice, and then a calm voice answered. Michael Whitmore speaking. Michael, I said, my voice small and tight. It's Evelyn Carter. There was a brief pause, and then his voice softened. Evelyn, it's been a long time. What can I do for you? I swallowed hard, my mouth dry as dust. I need to talk about updating my will. Of course, he said, his voice warm and reassuring. Tell me what's going on. I hesitated, the words catching in my throat. But then I thought of Vanessa's voice, so sweet and sharp, telling me how lucky I was to have them here. I thought of Brian, his head down, his silence a mirror of my own, and I thought of the house I had built, the life I had poured into every worn floorboard and crooked window pane. I wouldn't let it be stolen from me. I'm worried, I said finally. I'm worried that my wishes aren't going to be respected. I need to make sure. I need to make sure that what I want is protected. Michael was quiet for a moment, and I could almost hear the years of experience in his pause. I understand, he said at last. Evelyn, this is your life, your legacy. We'll make sure it's safe. Are you ready to fight for it? I closed my eyes, my breath shuddering out of me in a soft sigh. Yes, I said, I'm ready. The next few minutes passed in a blur of careful words and quiet resolve. Michael's calm voice was a steady anchor as he talked me through the process, how we'd review the old documents, what we'd need to do to ensure everything was secure. His confidence felt like a light in the darkness, a small, steady flame that I could hold on to. When we hung up, I sat there for a long time, the phone still warm in my hand. The rain outside had slowed to a gentle mist, the garden beyond the window shimmering in the soft light. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. I thought of Vanessa then, how she'd moved through my home like she owned it, how she'd smiled that cold smile as she pushed me further and further into the shadows. She thought she'd won. She thought my silence was a sign of surrender. She didn't know that silence can be a weapon too if you know how to wield it. I sat back in the chair, my fingers tracing the worn edge of the desk. I knew this was just the beginning. That Vanessa wouldn't take this quietly, that Brian would be caught in the middle, his loyalty pulled in two directions. But for the first time, I felt ready to face whatever came next. It was later that afternoon, as I was sorting through old letters and bank statements, that I stumbled across something that turned my quiet resolve into cold, hard fury. A small stack of papers tucked into a folder at the back of David's old filing cabinet. Vanessa's name, written in neat, careful script, over and over again. Loan applications, change of ownership forms, even my own signature on documents I had never seen before. My hand flew to my mouth, my breath coming in short, ragged gasps. Forged. She had been forging my name. And not just on small things, these were financial documents, the kind that could take my home, my life, everything I had built. I felt the world tilt under my feet, the weight of betrayal crushing the air from my lungs. I clutched the papers to my chest, my hands shaking with a mix of fear and something fiercer. She'd been planning this all along, manipulating Brian, making quiet changes behind the scenes while I stood by, too polite to question her sweet voice and careful lies. But I wasn't polite anymore, not when everything I had was at stake. That night, I sat in the study, the papers spread out in front of me like a map of her betrayal. The lamp cast a warm pool of light across the desk, the shadows of the room deep and still. My hands were steady now, the fear burned away by the bright, hard edge of determination. Vanessa thought she'd won, but she didn't know me. Not really. I picked up the phone again and dialed Michael's number, my voice sure and calm when he answered. "I found something," I said, "and I think it's time we talked about how to protect what's mine." The days grow longer and heavier, as if time itself has slowed to watch me struggle. Each hour stretches out like a thread pulled too thin, every sound in the house echoing louder than it should. I've lived here most of my life, but now the walls feel foreign, each creak and groan of the old floorboards making my heart leap in my chest. I find myself searching the house for signs of Vanessa's quiet encroachment. I move through the rooms like a restless ghost, opening drawers, lifting couch cushions, peering into the corners where dust gathers like secrets. I don't even know what I'm looking for exactly. Just something to prove that I'm not losing my mind. That the sense of being watched, of being slowly erased, is real and not just a trick of my own fears. At night, the hallway lights flicker and stutter, shadows stretching across the walls like long, thin fingers. Vanessa's footsteps echo in the dark, soft and deliberate, as she moves from room to room. I lie in bed and listen, the thin blanket pulled up to my chin, my breath held tight in my chest. I can't see her, but I can feel her quiet presence pressing down on me like a hand. In the daylight, she's all warm smiles and gentle touches. "You're lucky we're here to take care of you, Evelyn," she says, her voice as sweet and smooth as honey. But it's a honey that coats the throat, that sticks and chokes. Her eyes hold a cold glint when she thinks I'm not looking, a sharpness that tells me the truth behind the softness. Ruth sees it too, or at least she suspects. She stopped by the other day with a jar of homemade jam, her hands fluttering as she placed it on the kitchen table. "I hear Vanessa's settled in nicely," she said, her voice light but her eyes sharp. "She's helpful," I said carefully, my words measured. Ruth's lips twitched, her gaze lingering on Vanessa's designer handbag resting by the door. "Funny thing," she said, almost too casually. "A friend of mine from the next town over. She mentioned Vanessa's name once, said she'd heard things, financial troubles, some questionable decisions. She didn't say more, but the way her eyes flicked to mine told me she didn't need to. Thank you, Ruth." I said, my voice quiet but sure. And in that moment, I felt a small spark of something like hope, a sense that I wasn't completely alone in seeing what was really happening. Vanessa's threats are always subtle, wrapped in sweetness that would seem harmless to anyone else. You're lucky, Evelyn, she says when I linger too long in the kitchen doorway, watching her rearrange my pantry like it's her own. Not everyone would take the time to look after you like this. She says it with a smile, but her hand tightens around the glass she's holding, her knuckles white. I see the way Brian looks at her, the way his shoulders slump and his mouth twists, like he's swallowing words he doesn't dare speak. He's caught between us, a boy grown into a man who still thinks peace is worth more than truth. I see the shame in his eyes when I catch him looking at me, the silent apology he never says aloud. Michael and I talk in hushed tones when I can sneak away to the small study, the door closed tight behind me. I call him on the old landline, my voice a low murmur. The family papers, I say, using the careful phrase we agreed on. I need to make sure they're protected. They will be, he promises, his voice calm and certain. I'll make sure everything is documented. But Evelyn, you have to be sure. You have to be ready for what comes next. I am, I tell him, even as my hands tremble around the phone. I have to be. He pauses, his voice softening. Do you trust me, Evelyn? I take a breath, the weight of the years pressing down on my chest. Yes, I say, I do. But in the quiet of the night, doubt creeps in like a cold draft under the door. I find myself questioning everything. My memories, my instincts, the small moments that feel like proof but vanish when I try to hold on to them. Am I imagining the way Vanessa's eyes linger too long on the family photo albums? The way her hand rests on Brian's shoulder, possessive and tight? Or am I finally seeing what's been there all along? I go through the house again, my eyes sharp, my hands careful. In the kitchen, I find bills I didn't recognize, hidden in the drawer beneath the sink. Vanessa's neat handwriting on envelopes addressed to accounts I never opened. In the den, I find my checkbook, pages torn out and missing. My heart thunders in my chest, the room spinning around me as I clutch the evidence to my chest. Vanessa finds me there, the afternoon light slanting through the curtains, turning the dust motes to gold. What are you doing, Evelyn? She asks, her voice light but her eyes sharp as knives. I was just tidying up, I say, my voice thin and shaky. She tilts her head, her lips curving in a smile that doesn't reach her eyes. You don't need to worry about that. Let me handle it. She reaches out to take the papers from my hand, but I hold them tight, my fingers white on the edges. I'd like to keep them, I say quietly, meeting her gaze. For a moment, there's a flicker of something in her eyes, surprise maybe, or annoyance. Then it's gone, replaced by that calm, polite smile. Of course, she says, her voice smooth as glass. Whatever makes you feel comfortable. But I see the truth in that brief flicker, and it steals something inside me. She's used to people giving in, to people staying silent, but I won't be silent anymore. That night, I sit in my room, the papers spread out on the bed in front of me. My hands move carefully, sorting them, reading them over and over until the words blur together. The doubt is still there, whispering that I'm imagining things, that I'm just a lonely old woman spinning stories in the dark. But I can't ignore what I've seen, what I've felt in the cold press of Vanessa's voice, in the wary glances Brian tries so hard to hide. I think of my mother, of the way she taught me to swallow my voice, to keep my head down and endure. I think of all the times I let silence stand in for strength, but silence won't save me now. I press my hand flat against the bedspread, the quilt I made with my sister's help so many years ago. The stitches are loose in places, the fabric worn thin, but it's still strong. And so am I. I have to gather proof before they take everything. I whisper into the quiet of the room. My voice doesn't shake this time. Outside, the wind rattles the window panes, the trees whispering secrets in the dark. I gather the papers and tuck them into the old recipe book, the one that's held so many pieces of my life already. It feels fitting somehow, like the past and present are finally meeting in these pages. I know it won't be easy. Vanessa will fight and Brian will waver, but I've lived too long in other people's shadows to let mine be taken away so easily. Tomorrow, I'll call Michael again. I'll tell him what I've found. I'll fight for the life I built, the home that is mine in every creak of the floorboards and every thread of the quilt. I will not let Vanessa steal that from me, because for the first time in a long time, I'm done being unseen. I'm done being unheard. The dining room is bathed in soft, flickering candlelight, the kind of light that once made family meals feel warm and intimate. But tonight, it only casts long shadows that stretch across the walls like ghosts. The table is set with care, fine china, polished silver, wine glasses that catch the glint of the candle flames. It's a scene meant to impress, to soothe, but all I feel is the cold edge of dread. Vanessa sits at the head of the table, her posture perfect, her eyes bright with a kind of triumph she doesn't bother to hide. She raises her glass, her smile as sharp as the flick of a blade. To family and support, she says, her voice sweet and bright, but I hear the steel beneath it. May we always know how to take care of each other. I force a smile, my fingers tightening around the stem of my own glass. Family, I echo softly, my voice steady. May we always remember what that word really means. Her eyes flick to mine, a glimmer of challenge in them. She tilts her head slightly, the flicker of the candlelight making her look almost inhuman, her features sharp and hollow. Of course, she says, her tone dripping with false sweetness. Family is everything. Brian shifts in his seat beside me, his shoulders tense, his eyes darting between us like a child caught in a storm he doesn't understand. He's tried so hard to keep the peace, but I see the worry in the tight line of his mouth, the way his fingers drum restlessly against the tablecloth. I set my glass down carefully, the quiet click of it against the china loud in the stillness. My heart pounds in my chest, but my voice is calm when I speak. Brian, I say softly, my gaze locked on his. I don't feel safe in my own home. The words hang in the air, heavy and sharp. Brian's eyes widen, his mouth opening slightly as if to protest, but no sound comes out. He looks at me like he doesn't know what to say, like he's suddenly seeing me, really seeing me, for the first time in months. Vanessa's laughter is soft and low, a sound that sends a shiver down my spine. Oh, Evelyn, she says, her tone mockingly gentle. You're tired, that's all. You've been through so much, it's natural to feel a little unsteady. I turn to her, my voice firm but quiet. Don't patronize me, Vanessa. She blinks, her lips parting in a small, surprised smile. I'm not, she says smoothly, her eyes narrowing just a fraction. I'm simply trying to help. But I see the truth in her eyes, the way she leans back in her chair, her fingers wrapped around the stem of her wine glass like a weapon, the way her smile doesn't reach her eyes, her gaze fixed on me like I'm a problem to be solved. I know what you're doing, I say, my voice low and even, and I won't let you take my home from me. Brian shifts beside me, his hand reaching out to touch mine. Mom, he says, his voice soft and uncertain. Please, let's not do this tonight. Can we just have a nice dinner? I turn to him, my heart breaking at the pleading in his eyes. Brian, I say quietly, this isn't just dinner. This is my life. For a moment, the room is silent except for the soft crackle of the candles and the distant rumble of the wind outside. Then Vanessa laughs again, a soft, dismissive sound. You're being dramatic, she says, her tone bright and dismissive. No one's trying to take anything from you, Evelyn. You're imagining things. But I'm not. I know it now, as surely as I know the ache in my bones each morning. I see the way she looks at me, the way she speaks to Brian when she thinks I can't hear. Like I'm already gone, like I'm just another obstacle in her path. I straighten in my chair, my back stiff, my voice steady. If I can't rely on my son, I say, my words a quiet vow, then I'll rely on myself. Vanessa's smile falters for just a moment, the first crack in her polished facade. She opens her mouth to speak, but the moment is broken by the sound of a glass tipping over, red wine spilling across the white tablecloth like a wound. Brian fumbles to clean it, his hands shaking, his eyes flicking to Vanessa and back to me. "It's just wine," she says, her voice calm as she dabs at the stain with a napkin. "No need to make a fuss." But I see it in her eyes. She knows I'm not done. And neither is she. Later that night, when the house has gone quiet and Vanessa's carefully measured footsteps have faded down the hall, I sit in the living room, the flickering light of the old lamp casting long, dancing shadows on the walls. My heart still pounds with the echoes of that dinner, the weight of what was said and what wasn't, pressing down on me. I lean back in the old armchair, the upholstery worn smooth by years of family, gatherings and quiet nights. I close my eyes, listening to the silence, feeling the weight of the house settle around me like a familiar blanket. But as the quiet stretches on, I hear something else. A faint rhythmic click, so soft I almost think I'm imagining it. My eyes snap open, my gaze sweeping the room until it settles on the small wooden cabinet by the fireplace. I push myself up, my hands trembling as I cross the room. I open the cabinet door, my breath catching in my throat as I see the small black recording device tucked neatly behind a stack of old photo albums. The red light on its face blinks steadily, a silent witness to every word, every tear, every quiet confession in this house. My knees go weak, my hand gripping the edge of the cabinet to steady myself. She's been recording me, watching me, gathering proof to paint me as a woman who's lost her mind. A woman who can't be trusted with her own life. I pick up the device, its smooth plastic cold in my hand. My reflection stares back at me in the dark glass, the lines of my face sharp and clear. I feel the old fear rising in my chest, the echo of my mother's voice telling me to endure, to be quiet, to let it go. But I won't. Not this time. I tuck the recorder into the pocket of my cardigan, my heart pounding, my breath coming in short, sharp bursts. I feel the fire in my chest, the quiet, steady beat of determination that tells me I'm not done yet. Vanessa thinks she's won, that she can erase me with lies and half-truths. But I see her now, clear as the red light blinking in the dark. And I won't let her win. The house is dark, the only light a thin sliver of moonlight slipping through the curtains, turning everything to shades of silver and shadow. My heart is a drumbeat in my chest as I move through the quiet rooms, each step careful, deliberate. My hands tremble, but my resolve is steady. I have to know what she's hiding. Vanessa's things are always so neat, so carefully curated, like her smile, like the way she speaks to Brian in soft, patronizing tones. I start in the den, my fingers lingering on the cold metal handles of her filing cabinet. The quiet click of the drawers opening echoes in the stillness, each sound a small defiance in the darkness. Inside, I find what I expected. Bank statements, bills, paperwork that looks so innocent on the surface. But beneath it, I find something else. Small notes written in Vanessa's precise looping script. Words that chill me to the bone. Legal guardianship, mental incompetence, next of kin. My breath catches in my throat as I trace the letters with a shaking hand. She's not just trying to push me out. She's planning to erase me entirely. The weight of it settles over me like a cold fog. But there's something else, too. A quiet thrill that cuts through the fear. She's careful, but I'm not the docile woman she thinks I am. Not anymore. I tuck the papers into the pocket of my robe, my heart pounding as I move to the small safe she keeps in the corner of the room. I don't know the combination, but I don't need to. Not yet. Just knowing it's there, knowing she has things locked away from me, is enough to stoke the fire in my chest. In the hallway, I hear a soft creak, the house settling, or maybe something else. My breath catches, my ears straining for any sound. Vanessa's footsteps are always soft, always deliberate. I know the pattern of them by heart now, the measured cadence of someone who thinks they own the space they walk through. I slip back to my room before she can catch me, the papers clutched tight in my hand. In the quiet, I hear my mother's voice in my head, cold and distant. A good woman knows when to be quiet. For so long, I believed her. I thought silence was safety, that endurance was the only way to survive. But I see now how that silence has been a cage, how it's given people like Vanessa the power to rewrite my life. I'm done with that. The next morning, the kitchen is filled with the bright light of early spring, the air thick with the smell of coffee, and the faint tang of something cooking on the stove. Vanessa moves through the space like a queen in her domain, her every movement controlled, graceful. Brian sits at the table, his head down, his hands wrapped around a mug of coffee that's long gone cold. "Morning, Evelyn," Vanessa says sweetly, her voice warm and syrupy. "I hope you slept well." I force a small smile, my fingers tight around the handle of my own mug. "Well enough," I say softly. My eyes flick to Brian, who looks up at me with a small, uncertain smile that doesn't reach his eyes. Vanessa sets a plate in front of him, her hand brushing his shoulder with a soft, possessive touch. "Your mother's been under a lot of stress lately," she says, her tone so gentle it makes my skin crawl. "I think it's starting to get to her, don't you, Brian?" He looks at her, then back at me, his mouth opening like he wants to protest. But the words don't come. I see the confusion in his eyes, the doubt. He wants to believe me, I can tell. But Vanessa's voice is a soft rope around his heart, and he doesn't know how to pull away. "I'm fine," I say, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. "I know exactly what's going on." Vanessa's smile doesn't falter. "Of course you do, Evelyn," she says sweetly. "Of course you do." I stand up, my hands trembling just slightly as I set my cup down. "I have things to do today," I say quietly. "Important things." Vanessa's eyes narrow just a fraction, but she doesn't say anything. Brian just watches me, his brow furrowed, his mouth a tight line. I can see the war in his eyes, the pull of loyalty to his mother, the weight of the lies Vanessa has wrapped around him like a blanket. As I leave the room, I hear Vanessa's soft voice, her words drifting after me like smoke. "Your mother just isn't herself lately," she says. "We have to be patient with her, Brian." I close my eyes for a moment, the weight of those words pressing down on me like a stone. But I know who I am. I know what I've seen. Back in my room, I sit at the small writing desk by the window, the papers spread out in front of me like a map of betrayal. My hands are steady now, my breath even. I feel the fear, but it's no longer the kind that paralyzes me. It's the kind that steels me, that makes me sharper. I think of my mother, of the generations of women who learned to swallow their voices, to bend themselves to fit someone else's vision of who they should be. I think of how I passed that lesson down to Brian without even realizing it, how I let my own silence teach him to doubt himself. No more. I gather the papers, tucking them into an envelope that I seal with trembling fingers. I know what I have to do. I have to bring everything to Michael. Let the truth speak for itself. Let the weight of these words and signatures cut through the lies Vanessa has spun. I take a breath, the spring air fresh and cool against my face as I open the window. The world outside is bright and alive, the garden blooming in soft greens and whites. It feels like a promise, a small, quiet reminder that life goes on, that new things can grow even in the shadows. I tuck the envelope into my bag, my hands steady, my heart calm. Vanessa thinks she's won, that her careful words and sweet smiles are enough to erase me. But she doesn't know the woman she's dealing with. Not really. I look at my reflection in the window, my face lined and tired, but my eyes clear and fierce. "You're not done yet," I whisper to myself. "Not by a long shot." The fear is still there, coiled tight in my chest. But so is something else, something bright and unyielding. I've lived a lifetime in the quiet, but I won't let Vanessa turn my silence into my undoing. Not this time. The storm outside rages with a ferocity that feels like it was summoned just for this night. Thunder rattles the windows, and lightning slashes the sky in jagged streaks of white. Rain lashes against the glass in sheets, a wild, relentless drumming that fills the darkened house with an eerie cadence. The air smells of wet earth and old wood, the scent of a world being torn open. I stand in the living room, the small recorder in my hand, its red light a steady pulse in the darkness. Brian and Vanessa sit across from me, their faces caught in the flickering light of the storm. Vanessa's expression is composed, but her eyes glint with something cold and sharp. Brian looks pale, the lines around his mouth deepening as he fidgets with his wedding band. "I asked you both here because I'm done being silent," I say, my voice low but clear. The words feel like they're being pulled from someplace deep inside me, a place I'd buried under years of polite smiles and careful silences. Vanessa's lips twitch in a small, condescending smile. Evelyn, this isn't the time. This is exactly the time. I cut in, my voice steady. I have something to show you. Both of you. I set the recorder down on the coffee table between us and press play. My own voice fills the room, a quiet murmur that grows louder as the recording plays. My conversations with Vanessa, her careful reassurances to Brian, the subtle threats she thought I wouldn't catch. The words are stark and undeniable, each one a crack in the careful facade she's built around us. Brian's eyes widen, his hand falling still. Vanessa, he says softly, turning to her. What is this? She laughs, a brittle sound that doesn't reach her eyes. This is nonsense, Brian. She's confused. She's old. She doesn't know what she's saying. But I'm not done. I pull the notes from my robe pocket, the words written in Vanessa's precise looping script. I found these, I say, my voice hardening. You've been planning this for months. Legal guardianship, mental incompetence. You were going to take everything from me. Vanessa's face tightens, her smile faltering. I was trying to protect you, Evelyn, she says, her voice dripping with false sweetness. You're not well. You need help. I shake my head, my heart pounding. I've never been clearer, I say. You wanted to erase me, to turn me into a shadow in my own home. But I see you now, Vanessa. I see exactly what you are. The storm crashes outside, lightning flaring in the window behind me, casting Vanessa's face in stark relief. For the first time, she doesn't have a quick, dismissive reply. She just stares at me, her eyes cold and hard. Brian's voice is small, uncertain. Vanessa, is this true? Did you really? She whips her head toward him, her eyes flashing. Don't you dare question me, she hisses. I've done everything for you, for this family. She's just trying to make you doubt me, can't you see that? But Brian shakes his head, tears welling in his eyes. I don't know what to see anymore, he says, his voice breaking. I've tried so hard to believe you, but this... He gestures to the notes, to the recorder still playing my quiet, steady voice. I can't pretend anymore. I step forward, my hands trembling but my voice firm. Brian, I know I've made mistakes. I know I taught you to stay quiet, to smooth things over. But you can't do that now. You can't let her take everything because it's easier to look away. He wipes at his eyes with the back of his hand, his shoulders slumping. I didn't want to see it, he says softly. I thought if I just kept my head down, everything would work out. But I see it now. I see what she's done to you. Vanessa lets out a sharp, humorless laugh. You're all fools, she snaps. You think this changes anything? You think anyone will believe the word of an old woman who can't even remember where she puts her keys? I lift my chin, my voice calm. I remember everything that matters, and I have the proof now. For a moment, the only sound is the storm outside, the wind rattling the windows and the soft, steady breathing of the three of us in the room. Then I speak again, my voice ringing out like the crack of thunder. This is my home, my life, and I will not be erased. Vanessa's face twists, her mask slipping. You think you're so clever, Evelyn, she sneers, but you don't know everything. She turns to Brian, her eyes hard and glittering. Tell her, she says, tell her what you did. Brian flinches, his face going pale. Vanessa, don't... Tell her, she says again, her voice cold and commanding. He looks at me, his eyes wide and full of shame. Mom, he says, his voice shaking. I signed something, a document. Vanessa said it was just to make things easier, for your care. She said it would protect you if anything happened. My breath catches in my throat, the room tilting around me. A power of attorney? I whisper. He nods, tears slipping down his cheeks. I didn't know what it meant. I thought it was to help you, but now I see what she really wanted. I close my eyes, the weight of it pressing down on me like a mountain. She's not just trying to erase me, she's already found a way to take my voice, my choices, everything that makes me who I am. But even as the fear rises in my chest, there's something else too, a bright, fierce determination that won't be snuffed out. I open my eyes and look at Brian, my voice steady. You need to call Michael, I say. You need to tell him everything. The power of attorney, the documents, everything. Brian nods, his shoulders shaking. I will, he says, his voice choked. I swear, Mom, I'll make this right. Vanessa stands up, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. You won't win, she says, her voice low and furious. I've come too far to let you ruin this. I meet her gaze, my own voice calm and sure. You can try to take everything from me, Vanessa, but I won't let you. I'm not the woman you thought I was. The storm outside roars like an angry chorus, the wind howling through the trees. In that chaos, I feel something break free inside me, a weight I've carried for too long, a silence that has kept me small. I see the truth of it now, and I know that I will fight. I will not be erased. I will not be silenced. This is my home, I say again, my voice ringing out like a bell. My life, and I will not be erased. And in that moment, even with the storm raging around us, I feel something like peace. Because I know that I'm not done, that my story isn't over, and that I will not let Vanessa write the ending for me. The storm has passed, leaving behind a house that feels raw and exposed in the quiet light of dawn. The rain-soaked windows glisten with soft pink and gold reflections, the air sharp and new. For the first time in a long time, I feel the weight of silence lift, leaving behind only the steady beat of my heart. Vanessa sits in the corner of the room, her arms folded tightly across her chest, her shoulders rigid. Her eyes flick to me and then away, the careful mask of sweetness gone. In its place is something hard and brittle, a woman who's finally been seen for what she truly is. You have to understand, she says, her voice low and trembling. I was only trying to help. I thought it would be better this way. I look at her, my voice quiet but unflinching. Better for who, Vanessa? For me or for you? She flinches at that, her mouth tightening. You're making me the villain here, Evelyn, but you don't know everything. You don't know what it's like to be married to someone who doesn't see you, to feel like you're always second best. I nod slowly, her words slicing deeper than she realizes. I know more than you think, I say softly, but none of that gives you the right to take my life from me. She doesn't answer. Instead, she lets out a slow, shaky breath, her gaze dropping to her hands in her lap. The morning light catches the glint of her wedding band, a small circle of gold that once meant belonging, but now feels like a chain around her finger. Brian sits beside me, his shoulders hunched, his hands clasped tightly together. For the first time in years, he looks at me not as a burden or an obligation, but as someone he's finally ready to hear. Mom, he says, his voice thick with emotion. I'm so sorry. I didn't see it. Any of it. I wanted to believe her because it was easier than facing the truth. But I see it now. I see how I let her use my silence to hurt you. My eyes sting, tears slipping down my cheeks as I reach for his hand. I know, I say, my voice breaking, and I'm sorry too. I taught you to be quiet, to think that love meant never asking for more than you were given. I see now how that shaped you, how it let Vanessa's lies grow without question. The words hang between us, a bridge built from years of unspoken truths. I feel the weight of them in my chest, but I also feel the relief of finally letting them out. I don't want to be that man anymore, Brian says, his eyes glistening. I want to be the son who stands by you, not the one who looks away. I squeeze his hand, the simple gesture grounding me in this new reality. Then stand with me, Brian. Help me protect what's mine. What's ours? He nods, a small, fierce determination in his eyes. I will, Mom. I promise the house is quiet around us. The only sounds the soft creak of the old floorboards and the distant murmur of the wind through the trees. In the kitchen, the clock ticks steadily, a comforting rhythm that feels like the heartbeat of this home. As the light grows stronger, Eleanor steps into the room, a quiet figure in a crisp gray suit, her eyes kind and steady behind her glasses. She's been Michael's assistant for years, a presence I barely noticed in the beginning, but now I see her for what she is, another woman who has learned the power of quiet strength. Mrs. Carter, she says softly, her voice calm and sure. I spoke with Michael this morning. He's ready to move forward with finalizing your will. He wanted me to tell you that he's proud of you for standing your ground. I feel a small smile tug at my lips, the first real one in days. Thank you, Eleanor, I say, my voice warm, for everything. She nods, her expression softening. You're stronger than you know, Evelyn, and you're not alone anymore. The words settle into my bones like a balm, soothing the ache that's lived there for so long. I look around the room, at the worn furniture and the soft light filtering through the curtains, and I feel a quiet certainty bloom in my chest. This is my home, my life, and I will not let it be taken from me. Vanessa lets out a small, bitter laugh from her corner. You think this changes anything, she says, her voice tight. You're old, Evelyn. They'll still see you as fragile, easy to manipulate. I turn to her, my eyes clear and calm. Maybe, I say softly, but I know who I am now, and that's more power than you'll ever have. She opens her mouth to reply, but the words die on her lips. The mask is gone, and in its place is the hollow truth of someone who's finally lost her grip. Brian stands up, his hand still clasped around mine. We're done here, Vanessa, he says, his voice firm. Mom's not alone anymore, and I won't let you keep her in the shadows. The quiet that follows is a kind of peace I haven't felt in years. The morning light streams in, painting the room in soft gold and warm white, and I take a slow, steady breath. I know there will be battles ahead, legal fights, long conversations, the painful work of healing old wounds, but for the first time, I feel ready. As Vanessa gathers her things and leaves the room, her footsteps echo in the quiet like a final farewell. I watch her go without a word, feeling the weight of the past slip from my shoulders, leaving me standing taller than I have in years. I turn to Eleanor, her eyes bright with quiet pride. I'd like to sign the final papers today, I say. I'm ready to make this official. She nods, her smile soft but certain. We'll make sure your voice is the only one that matters, Evelyn. And in that promise, in the quiet strength of the morning light and the steady beat of my own heart, I know that I am finally free. The house is quiet in the late afternoon light, the shadows long and golden on the worn hardwood floors. The air smells faintly of wood polish and fresh flowers, a careful balance of old and new that feels like a promise. I sit in my favorite armchair, the one with the sun-faded upholstery, the weight of years pressing into the cushions beneath me. This is where I choose to end the story they tried to rewrite. Michael arrives just as the sun begins to slip below the horizon. He moves with quiet confidence, the weight of his briefcase balanced in one hand, his gaze calm and steady as he steps into the living room. Eleanor follows him, a silent presence at my side, her eyes bright with quiet understanding. She's been here for me in ways I never imagined, and I feel her support like a quiet force beside me. Mrs. Carter, Michael says, his voice even and reassuring. We're ready whenever you are. He places the updated will on the small writing table by my chair, the paper crisp and white against the dark wood. The air feels charged, each breath a small defiance in the silence of the room. I glance at the document, the black ink of my name already filled in the places where I've claimed what's mine. My heart hammers in my chest, but my hand is steady as I pick up the pen. For a moment the world seems to narrow to the fine point of that ink, the curve of each letter a final declaration of who I am. Michael speaks softly, his tone low and calm. This is your will, Evelyn, your decision, made with clarity and purpose. It's your right to decide what happens to your life, your legacy. I meet his gaze, feeling the weight of every choice I've made, every quiet moment that brought me here. I know, I say, my voice firm, and I'm ready. The flicker of candlelight from the table lamp dances across the page as I sign my name, each stroke of the pen a quiet rebellion against the years I spent letting others decide who I was allowed to be. When I'm done, I lay the pen down carefully, the finality of the gesture ringing louder than any words. I've spent my life being quiet, I whisper, more to myself than to them. No more. Michael's expression softens, pride glinting in his eyes. You've reclaimed what's yours, Evelyn, and no one can take that from you now. I feel a fierce pride welling in my chest, tempered by the ache of everything I've lost. The grief is still there, a quiet, constant hum beneath the surface, but it no longer drowns out the strength I've found. I look around the room at the small, familiar touches that have made this house a home. The old quilt draped across the back of the couch, the family photos lining the mantel, the faint scent of lavender from the sachets I tucked into every drawer. Brian sits in the doorway, his eyes red-rimmed and hollow. He watches as I sign the will, his face etched with the weight of everything he didn't say soon enough. When the papers are done, he steps forward, his voice breaking. "Mom," he says, his words heavy with regret. "I'm sorry. I didn't see what was happening. I didn't want to see it. I let her twist everything until I didn't know what to believe." I look at him, my heart both tender and firm. "I know," I say gently, "and I forgive you for what you didn't see, but I can't let that stop me from doing what's right." He nods, tears slipping down his cheeks. "I want to make it right, if you'll let me try." I reach out, my fingers brushing his for just a moment. "I want that too, Brian, but it starts with you understanding that I am not someone to be erased." He nods, swallowing hard. "I do. I promise." The words hang between us, fragile and hopeful. For the first time in years, I feel like there's a chance for something like healing, a chance for us to build something new on the ashes of what was. Eleanor rests a hand lightly on my shoulder, her steady presence grounding me. "You've done more than enough today, Evelyn," she says, her voice warm. "You've taken back what matters?" I nod, the weight of the moment settling over me like a warm blanket. The flicker of candlelight catches the final signature, the ink still wet and glistening. My name in black and white, a testament to the woman I've chosen to be. But the quiet doesn't last. The front door bursts open with a sharp crack, the sound echoing through the house like a gunshot. Vanessa stands in the doorway, her face twisted in fury, a sheaf of papers clutched in her hand. Her eyes lock on me, cold and triumphant. "You think this is over?" she spits out, her voice vibrating with rage. "You think you've won?" I straighten in my chair, my heart steady, my voice calm. "I've signed my will, Vanessa. It's done." She stalks forward, the papers crumpling in her white-knuckled grip. "Not if this says otherwise," she snarls, brandishing the document in my face. "I have proof. Proof you signed everything over to me months ago. Power of attorney, full control. Your name is right here." I feel the words land in my chest like a physical blow. My vision narrows to the paper she's holding, the black ink of my name scrawled across it in a signature that looks so much like mine. My breath catches, my pulse a steady drum in my ears. Michael steps forward, his voice calm but steel-edged. "Where did you get that, Vanessa?" "Because if it's what I think it is, it's fraud, and you'll answer for it." She laughs, the sound sharp and bitter. "Call it what you want." She sneers. "But I have this, and that means everything you've done here doesn't matter." I meet her gaze, my voice steady, my hands no longer trembling. "We'll see about that," I say quietly, "because I'm not going to be erased. Not by you, not by anyone." The storm may be over outside, but I can feel the storm inside me rising, the fierce certainty of a woman who has found her voice at last. I turn to Michael, my words firm. "We're not done, are we?" He shakes his head, his eyes glinting with determination. "Not even close." And in that promise, in the steady beat of my heart and the strength of my own name written in bold black ink, I know that I will fight. I will stand, and I will not be silenced. The cold winter light spills through the tall windows of the living room, painting the wooden floors in pale streaks of silver. Outside, the wind whispers through the bare branches of the old oak, its quiet song filling the silence that has settled over the house. Vanessa stands in the center of the room, the sheaf of forged papers still clutched in her hands, her eyes narrowed and hard. She paces like a caged animal, her fury simmering just beneath the brittle calm of her voice. You think this is the end, Evelyn? She spits out. You think a piece of paper will stop me? I stand by the fireplace, my back straight, my hands steady at my sides. No, I say quietly. I think the truth will. Vanessa's lips curl in a sneer. The truth? The truth is what I say it is, and I'm telling you now, I'm going to contest that will. I'll take it to court, drag your name through the mud if I have to. Her voice cracks like a whip in the quiet, but I feel no fear. I meet her gaze, my voice calm and even. You can try, I say, but you can't take what isn't yours. The words hang between us, sharp and final. Vanessa falters, her breath hitching as the power of the moment settles into the air. Her mask slips just for a moment, long enough for me to see the desperation flicker in her eyes. Brian stands a few feet behind her, his shoulders hunched, his hands shoved deep in his pockets. He looks at me with eyes that are clearer now, the fog of denial finally lifting. Mom, he says softly, I don't know how to fix all this. I don't know if I even can. I turn to him, my heart aching for the boy he used to be, the one who used to crawl into my lap after nightmares, the one who laughed so easily before the world taught him to hold back. You don't have to fix it, Brian, I say. You just have to see it. And you have to decide who you want to be from here. His eyes glisten, and he nods slowly, the smallest flicker of hope breaking through the lines of guilt on his face. Vanessa lets out a harsh, humorless laugh. Touching, she says, her voice dripping with disdain. But you're a fool, Evelyn. You've always been too soft, too trusting. That's why you've ended up here, fighting for scraps of a life that's already slipping away. I step closer to her, my voice soft but unyielding. I may be old, Vanessa. I may be tired, but I am not weak, and I will not let you define the end of my story. The wind outside rattles the windows, the cold light turning Vanessa's silhouette into something ghostly, a woman caught in her own web of lies. She stares at me, her jaw working, but the fight in her eyes is beginning to dim. Finally, she straightens, her face hardening into something cold and brittle. This isn't over, she says, her voice low and trembling. I'll make sure you regret this. I hold her gaze, my voice clear and resolute. I won't, because I know who I am now, and nothing you do can take that away from me. For a moment, the only sound is the quiet creak of the old floorboards, the soft tick of the clock on the mantel. Then with a sharp, final exhale, Vanessa turns and walks toward the door, her footsteps echoing in the hush. The winter light catches her silhouette as she pauses in the doorway, her shoulders stiff, her head high. But she doesn't look back. The door clicks shut behind her, and the house settles into a deep, profound stillness. I close my eyes for a moment, letting the quiet wash over me. The ache in my chest is deep, a hollow space where the idea of family used to live, but there's something else there too, something quiet and fierce, a sense of peace, a sense of self. Eleanor steps up beside me, her hand resting lightly on my arm. She doesn't say anything, but her presence is a quiet anchor, a reminder that I am no longer alone. I'm proud of you, she says softly, her voice gentle. You stood your ground. You didn't let her take one more inch of your life. I let out a slow breath, the words sinking into the cracks that used to be filled with fear. For so long, I say, my voice thick with emotion, I thought that being quiet was the same as being strong, that if I just endured, it would be enough. She nods, her eyes kind. It's what we're taught, isn't it? To endure, to keep the peace. But sometimes strength isn't in the silence, it's in the choice to finally speak. I look around the room at the faded curtains and the old photographs lining the walls. My family is fractured, my heart still raw from the loss of what I hoped we could be. But for the first time, I feel like this house is mine again. Not just the wood and stone of it, but the memory and meaning of it. The life I built here piece by piece, and the woman I've become in the quiet spaces between. Brian lingers in the doorway, his eyes still wet, his shoulders slumped. I don't know if you'll ever be able to forgive me, he says, his voice low and hoarse. I meet his gaze, my voice soft. Forgiveness is a choice. I say, and I don't know if I'm ready. But I know this. You're still my son, and there's still time to choose something better. He nods slowly, the relief in his eyes almost too much to bear. Thank you, he whispers. I offer him a small smile, the weight of the past still there, but no longer a chain around my throat. We'll find our way, I say quietly, even if it's not the way I imagined. The winter light grows brighter as the sun rises higher, turning the frost on the window panes into glistening lace. In that light, I see not just the scars of what was lost, but the quiet possibility of what can still be. Eleanor stands with me, her hand warm on my arm. What now? She asks softly. I take a deep breath, my voice steady. Now I finish what I started. I'll finalize the will, make sure Vanessa has no claim to what's mine. I'll rebuild this house, not just the walls, but the life within them. She nods, her eyes bright. And I'll be here, she says, as long as you need. I look around the room, the soft light and the quiet stillness of a house that has seen both joy and sorrow. And I feel, deep in my bones, that this is where I choose to stand. No longer a woman waiting to be seen, but a woman who has chosen to see herself. The weight of generations, my mother's harsh lessons, my father's silences, my own years of quiet endurance, still lingers, but it no longer defines me. I have claimed this ground as mine, not just the house, but the story of my life. As the wind outside softens to a sigh, I close my eyes and whisper to myself, I am here, and I will not be erased. And in that quiet certainty, I find something like peace. Spring has arrived, the gentle warmth of the sun turning the frost-bitten earth into soft, yielding soil. I can feel the shift in the air, the promise of new beginnings carried on the breeze that drifts through the open windows of my home. The scent of fresh flowers, daffodils, hyacinths, and the delicate white blossoms of the dogwood fills the rooms, a soft, comforting perfume that feels like a benediction. I stand in the small garden at the back of the house, my hands buried in the cool soil. The earth is damp and fragrant beneath my fingers, the first green shoots of new life just beginning to break through the dark loam. Each tender sprout feels like a quiet triumph, a testament to the simple, stubborn persistence of growth. In them, I see a reflection of my own journey, frail but unbreakable, soft but certain. Eleanor stands beside me, her sleeves rolled up, her hair pulled back in a loose braid. She kneels to help me plant the last of the bulbs, her movements sure and steady. The sun catches the glint of her small gold earrings, a quiet sparkle of warmth in the bright light. You're getting good at this, she says, her voice light and warm. I think you've got the best patch of earth in the neighborhood. I smile, brushing a smudge of dirt from my cheek. It's been a long time since I felt like I could make something grow. I admit, my voice soft but sure. But I think I'm ready to try again. Eleanor leans back on her heels, her eyes meeting mine. You're more than ready, she says, her tone gentle but certain. You've reclaimed so much already, Evelyn. You've found your own ground to stand on. I nod, letting her words sink in, feeling them settle into the quiet spaces of my heart. I've spent so many years tending to other people's needs, I say softly. Their fears, their expectations. I thought that was love, giving everything and asking for nothing, but I see now that love doesn't mean erasing yourself. She places a hand on my shoulder, her touch firm and reassuring. You deserve to be seen, to be heard, and to have a life that's yours, not one someone else tries to write for you. I close my eyes, breathing in the fresh scent of the earth and the bright sweetness of the spring air. This is my home, I whisper, my life, my voice, and I will never be silenced again. Inside, the house feels different. The rooms are still filled with memories, the old photographs on the mantel, the worn quilt draped over the back of the couch, but the weight of those memories has shifted. They're no longer chains that bind me to the past, but threads that weave me into the present. The walls seem to breathe with a new kind of quiet, not the brittle silence of fear, but the soft, steady hush of belonging. Brian stopped by yesterday, his hands shoved deep in his pockets, his eyes uncertain but hopeful. We talked in the living room, our voices low and careful, like two people learning a new language. There's a long way to go, years of hurt and misunderstanding to untangle. But for the first time, I believe that healing is possible. I'm trying, Mom, he said, his voice trembling. I want to be the son you deserve. I took his hand, feeling the small tremor in his fingers, the quiet plea beneath his words. That's all I need, I told him. For you to try, for you to see me, and let me see you too. He nodded, his eyes bright with tears. I'm not going to let her take anything else from you, he said. Not your home, not your voice, not your peace. I believed him, and more importantly, I believed myself. Eleanor and I sit together on the back steps now, the last rays of the afternoon sun warming our skin. She pours us each a glass of cold lemonade, the tart sweetness a bright, clean taste that seems to match the day. We talk in easy rhythms, making plans for the coming weeks. Small things but precious to me. Repainting the porch, replanting the rose bushes, hosting a quiet dinner for the neighbors who stood by in the shadows but never judged. It feels like building a life. Not a life I inherited or one I was told to live, but one I've chosen for myself. The wind stirs the daffodils, their yellow heads nodding in the soft light. I watch them, feeling the echo of my mother's voice in the back of my mind, the voice that once told me to be quiet, to be small. But that voice is just a ghost now, a faded memory that no longer holds the power to bind me. I speak into the stillness, my voice low but firm. I see you, Mom. I see the way you taught me to be small, and I forgive you, but I will not follow you. I choose something different. Eleanor doesn't say anything, but her hand slips into mine, her fingers strong and steady. In her quiet presence, I find the strength to let the old ghosts rest. The garden is alive with color and promise, the green shoots reaching for the sun with a quiet, insistent strength. I watch them sway in the breeze, feeling my own. Roots sink deeper into the earth of this life I've claimed. Inside, the will is finalized, the old documents tucked away in the safe, their weight no longer a threat but a promise. Vanessa's name has been struck out, her claims exposed for what they were, lies meant to control, to diminish. In their place is my own voice, clear and unflinching, a testament to the woman I've become. As the sun begins to set, I take one last look around the garden, the air cool and fragrant, the sky a soft wash of pink and gold. I think of the years I spent trying to be enough for everyone but myself, and I let that weight go. This is my home, I say aloud, my voice strong and sure. This is my life, and I will never be silenced again. And in the quiet of that moment, I know it's true.